In this lesson, we're going to be talking about how to adjust your lighting. So as you know, lighting is all derived from an HDRI image. Again, HDRI stands for High Dynamic Range Image. And if I zoom out here, you can go ahead and see what's going on. So the car in this particular scene is contained inside of a sphere, and this sphere has an image mapped to it. All the lighting is derived from this particular image, and all the shadows that are cast accordingly. Just a little bit on HDRIs. HDRIs are 32-bit images, which means it has a greater range in contrast than a standard image that you would take with a regular camera. And what I mean by that is, with this extra contrast, you can really separate light sources from, say, things like walls or ground. And just to quickly show you how that works, if I decrease the brightness on this environment, notice how when everything else gets dark, the lights are still illuminated. That's because of all this extra contrast that we have in here. And notice you still do have detail in these illuminated areas. You know, with a standard 8-bit image, if you were to darken it, these areas here would have no detail in them, whereas in a 32-bit image it does. So this extra lighting and color information is how KeyShot can use images and turn them into realistic 3D lighting. So this is going to take the complexity out of setting up realistic lighting, and setting up your lighting is really as simple as dragging and dropping a different environment into the interface and using a few simple controls to manipulate that environment. Alright, so like I said, if you do want to switch out your environment, you can drag and drop one into the interface. So I will go ahead and go to the library. Again, this is where all your assets are stored. And if we pull up the environment window, I can go ahead and click in here and drag and drop an environment into the interface. Okay. So this will take the lighting from this image and apply it to the model. This one seems a bit dark, so if I wanted to increase the brightness, I could use the up arrows to do that. I could use a studio environment. And that's one thing that you'll notice. The environments that ship with KeyShot are basically two different types. You'll have these studio style environments, and these simulate photo studios of different types. And you have these photo-based ones down here. And depending on what you're rendering, one is definitely more suited than the other type. Generally, for small products and jewelry and things, you'll probably want to stick with the studio environments. If you are doing things like automotive or you're in the entertainment industry, more of these photo environments might be more appealing to you. But there's no set rule there. At the end of the day, it's going to be what looks best to you. Okay, so like I said, you can adjust the environment brightness by using the up and down arrows, and this will adjust it in large increments. And you can use the left and right arrows to adjust it in finer increments. Let's take a look at what's happening there when we do that. If I open up a project window, I can go to the environment tab, and this is going to show me all the settings for my environment lighting. So let's go through the list here and talk about what those are. You can increase or decrease contrast on your environment. I do recommend, though, for the most realistic images, you'll probably want to leave this at 1. Okay. Probably one of the widest used settings that you'll use from this menu is this brightness. And watch what happens here when I use those up and down arrows. So you can see that's what's changing there. You're adjusting that value in the environment tab. You can also increase or decrease the size. And what this is going to do for you is it's going to change how reflections fall across your model. Let me go ahead and pull up a different material here and show you what I mean. We'll get something that's pretty reflective. I'll go ahead and grab a chrome and drag and drop it onto this top part of the model, and I'll copy and paste it so we have a couple areas there. with the chrome. And let me zoom in to this part. And let's adjust some of our environment properties. So if I do adjust the size, you'll notice that changes how the reflections fall across the model. So I'm getting different areas of the environment being reflected in this chrome here. So this is one of the techniques that you can use to manipulate your reflections. Also, you can control the environment height. And again, this will control how reflections fall across your model. It will change where highlights and shadows are placed. And so if I zoom out here, let's take a look at what the height is actually doing. So as I increase or decrease the height, you can see how it's changing that environment. Okay. All right, the other thing you can do is control the rotation of your environment. And so as you click this little dial here, this will adjust the rotation of your environment in degrees. And if we zoom out again, you can see what's happening is that it's rotating this environment. And again, this is another technique that you can use to control the look of your render. It will change how the reflections fall across your model. And also, if you have any directional light sources in your environment, it will control where the light source is coming from, which in turn will affect your shadow. So for example, this scene has a pretty directional light source. You can see the shadow being cast off over here. And that's coming from this bright light source over there. So if I darken my environment here, you can see where that light source is coming from. There is basically a garage door where sunlight is coming in. And you can see that the shadow is being cast in a very specific direction from that light source. Now, if I change the rotation of my environment, it knows where that light source is and it will cast the shadow accordingly. So it is pretty intelligent in that, and you will get accurate shadows. Okay. Okay, some other options under your environment are the ability to change your color, and this will change the background color, or you can use a background image. Even when you are using a background image, a really important thing to note is that your lighting is still derived from your environment. That doesn't change. So even if I drag a background image in here, the lighting is still being derived from that environment image. Okay. Another method you can use to rotate your environment is pressing Control and left clicking and dragging. So that's going to be the hotkey for you. You can turn off ground shadows. And so now there's no longer a shadow. And you can also enable ground reflections under the Environment tab. And you can see the reflection there. You can also control the shadow color if you want to lighten or darken it. And you can choose to flatten the ground, which will basically flatten that environment and give you a flat surface for the model to rest on. Now, this is only important if you are using the environment image as your background. Now, this ground size option, you might have noticed when I was talking about the directional shadow, I went and actually increased this ground size option. So let's take a look at why I did that. So if we see our shadow here being cast off in this direction, the ground size refers to the invisible ground plane that the shadow is actually cast on. And if this is too small, you'll end up getting your shadow clipped. And what you want to do is actually keep this as small as you can while still maintaining your entire shadow. And the reason you want it small is for performance reasons. It is faster to calculate in higher quality when you have a smaller ground plane. So what you want to do, if you do see any shadow clipping, is come in here under the Environment tab and increase this ground size just enough so that your shadow is not clipped. Okay, so that's a look at adjusting your environment lighting and using the Environment tab.